Hello, good evening, and welcome to the HOLIBUBS-REP. And it's me talking about CoC, Chain of Command 2. Now, this is not going to be a review of those rules. There's plenty of videos out there telling you all about the down and dirty. And indeed, I would say that my learning experience is continuing with the rules. I played Chain of Command, the original version, a few times, and there's obviously a few videos on my channel about that. CoC 2 came out a few months ago. I jumped on the bandwagon and decided to get the updated version. And obviously there's quite a few differences and nuances which I've got to learn, along with many others. Anyway, so what I thought I would do was let you know how I'm going to take my version of CoC forward, and you know, we'll see where we go from there. I think I did make a comment on the old rules the other day that it is rather like chess in that I think if you gave that set of rules to a newbie, they would probably struggle. Indeed, I struggle with it because there are lots of various parts, and you've really got to think about what you want to do at any particular time, how you use the CoC points and the CoC dice and the various tactics. Play the period, not the rules, or whatever the two fat ladies come out with, is absolutely on the money there. So I think it's I think I heard one of them say, the Rich Clark or Nick Skinner, the other day, that you know, it's something that you're continually improving when you play the game using the rules, which I think is good news, because that means that it's not one-dimensional. It's not just line everybody out, have a go, roll a few dice, and that's it. No, there's a bit of grey matter going on there, which is good news, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? I think you know, we want to challenge when we're playing our games. We don't want to be too overly complex with tables and you know, the minutiae of stats and stuff like that. However, we want to be challenged with regards to how we're going to do something and the command choices to make. So there we go. That's probably all good two fat lady stuff, which they spout quite often. But I think it's a very valid point. And that's what makes the rules very good, in my humble opinion, and challenging, and gives it you know, a lot of scope. I'll talk about scope a bit later. Now, I have released my first two efforts of Chain of Command 2, Attack at Uman and Attack at Uman again, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Of course, there are lots of mistakes in the two videos that I put out. I did edit some out and refilm some of them, actually. And yes, and there still were lots of mistakes. There we go. We're not all perfect, are we? But I think regardless of that, and regardless of the errors, you can still get a fantastic narrative with these games, which is what I'm after in all of my games, really. And I don't care whether I get something wrong or you know, I miss something out. It's how the story unfolds on the table that is why I do gaming anyway. So so that's good stuff. Now, there are 6 scenarios, new scenarios, or very similar scenarios to the previous version 1 in Chain of Command 2, and I think I'll use them again as a learning curve, and I'll do another little series of videos with old Lieutenant Alexei Furkov taking on old Unterfeldwebel Eddie Kruger, and well, I'll play along with that. I won't use the proper campaign at the sharp end rules, but I'll probably just run them through a few times so I can get an idea of how to use the tactics and the support options for all those different variations. So over the next few months, you will see another 6 scenarios come out about Uman or just beyond or whatever. Completely fictitious stuff, but it will give me a vehicle for learning how the game moves forward, and how to use the tools, the dice, tactics, etc. from my perspective. All right, the other thing I thought I would do was a bit of show and tell. So you've seen my little figures on the table. Now let's have a look at what I've actually got for the Eastern Front with the German and Soviet troops. Like the Soviets, this German platoon is organised as per the CoC 2 Orbats. So we've got Eddie Kruger, the Unterfeldwebel out the front, and 3 sections exactly the same. 1 MG34 with 3 crew and 6 riflemen. Behind them, I've got the rest of the odds and sods I can use to backfill or replace the Orbats accordingly. There's the good old Lieutenant Otto Mann, or whichever other nom de plume I'm using at the time, and a few other riflemen and MG34s to mix and match. My supporting elements consist of a Pack 40 with 5 crew, a 37mm light anti-tank weapon, 2 groups of 3 assault pioneers, engineers, 1 group of 3 flamethrower gang, some snipers, mortar team, 2 MG42s, and in the middle there I've got a FOO. But I'm not quite sure I'll be using them now with the new rules and whether the FOO's actually on the table. Something to investigate. And onto the heavy support, although some of it is plastic, so it's not overly heavy. Out the front, I've got the 222 Recce vehicle. I've got 3 Panzer IIs. They're all Peter Pigs. I think the Recce vehicle was Plastic Soldier Company. 2 Panzer IIIs from Zvezda. A plastic short-barreled Stug 3 with a 75mm. A Marder 2, that is Plastic Soldier Company. And then we're on to a Panzer 4, that's Peter Pig. Obviously the Tiger tank, that's Peter Pig, big old heavy beast there, nice model. And on the left there, a couple more Stugs with the long version of the 75mm, again Peter Pig. In the background, a Kugelwagen, a couple of wagons, and a 251. On to the Soviets with Alexei Furkov out front. Again, this is the 44 version of the Orbat. He's got his inferior senior leader there, which is Vladimir Pukin, and a sniper section. These 3 sections are split into a heavy section with 2 LMGs and 2 lighter sections with 1 LMG each and 6 riflemen. And behind, again, some odds and sods to make up some different Orbats when I do different periods of the Second World War. And I do tend to go for the earlier periods rather than the later ones. My supports for them consist of a 76mm anti-tank gun, that's Peter Pig, 37mm anti-tank gun, again Peter Pig. This little gang is the Commissar. I put them on a little base with 3 because there's some quite good characters there and I quite like them. At the back there we've got a mortar team. To the right of them we've got one of these 3 Panzernacker teams, or whatever they're called, 2 groups of them, sort of Suicide Squad effectively. A flamethrower gang of 3, a couple of them, and 2 groups of 4 Maxim machine guns, the old tripod mounted sort of things. On to the heavy supports, and I've got 3 T26s out front. They are metal Peter Pigs. I've got a Plastic Soldier Company T70 all on its lonesome, and then 4 T34s, again they're Peter Pig. Moving to the back row, all these chaps are from Zvezda, an Su-76, an Su-122, and 2 KV-2s. And the back row are 3 Gaz trucks, Peter Pig, resin moulds. They've already got their little bases on, not overly keen on that I have to say. You'll notice all of my tanks and vehicles come unbased. And finally on the right back, an M3 Lee Grant. Can't remember where that one came from. And a few bits and bobs to help make the game a little more aesthetically pleasing. A couple of tank hulks, again they're resin moulds from Peter Pig, rather nice. I made up a jump off point here from the remnants of the Plastic Soldier Company Marder model, sort of embedded in the deck. These little resin prints, 3D prints, I can't remember where they came from, but they're jump off points. And I made some mine marking posts here out of some matchsticks and some basing material. There we are, not too bad. Oh, there we go. Yes, well, there's all my splendid little chaps. And you may have seen a couple of weeks ago, I revarnished them by putting some Galleria matte varnish over what they were previously, which was quite glossy. I wasn't overly happy with it. In fact, I've got to do that with a lot of my figures. Originally, when I started my latest collections of various, I took the advice on, I can't remember where I saw it, but you put a Humbrol gloss on first and a Humbrol matte, which looked reasonably good at the time. but it's far too glossy for my liking, so I've got to redo an awful lot of figures with the old Galleria matte and dull them right down. That's an aside. I don't really want to go there at the moment. With regards to Second World War, I have just ordered a book from Helion, which is the greatest tank battle in history, or something like that, Dubno. And that should be along in a short period of time. And it's basically the Soviet counterattack in Barbarossa. So that should give a lot of scope for my subsequent series of videos using Chain of Command 2. So I'll be looking forward to that one. Now, it's a bit booky as well, this little ranting, rambling stuff that I'm doing. Ages ago, I did pick up the old Far East supplement for Chain of Command. Now, there is stuff in there that has been included in Chain of Command version 2, but clearly when you're in the jungle, on the jungle fringes, things are slightly different. So there's some good stuff in there as well, which I want to be doing. Now, I would like to do Far East proper 42, 43, something like that, with British Commonwealth troops against the Japanese. I don't have those, and I may get them in the future. But obviously that's another purchase, and that's another, investment in miniatures and figures and tanks and stuff. I've got the terrain, and you may well have seen my Chain of Command DMZ, the old Vietnam stuff, probably last year sometime, if not before then, and that was good fun. The DMZ version was slightly different, but I won't go into the details there. However, what I am quite interested in, and I don't know whether you can see on the camera there, this is Big CoC in Africa. And this was a printout I did ages ago now from a Lard magazine, where a group of chaps in Australia at one of their conventions did basically an AK-47, which is another rule set that I quite like. An AK-47 Chain of Command sort of thing, with various factions. There was the government faction, the religious movement, there was the interventionists, all that sort of stuff, which AK-47 covers quite well, I think, to give you lots of ideas about different groupings. So the other thing I picked up the other day was Wars of Insurgency, which is a small model count skirmish game. There's some good stuff in there as well. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, it's because really what I want to do, as well as my Eastern Front stuff, is bang out a bit of Modern Africa Chain of Command 2. So there will be a few differences in the rules, and certainly with some of the various groupings, I've got to think about some potentially different national characteristics, if we want to call it that, and write them into various scenarios. But it's an imagination type setting. It's not too far after the Second World War that I've got to start going with some fancy weapon systems to really bugger it up. So, you know, sort of mid-60s or so, something like that. And that could be quite fun. So again, what I thought I would do is I've filmed a bit of my stuff that I've been doing in the background over the last couple of years, actually, because originally I wanted to do AK-47, but you actually have to have quite a large model count. And I might eventually get there at some stage, but I'm not at the moment. Anyway, I'll do another show and tell of my Modern Africa stuff, and hopefully that can get on the table before too long as well, because I think that's some real fun scenarios in there with the various squabbling parties in some fictitious Central African hellhole. Here are my professional forces. All these figures are Peter Pig, and they are nice little sculpts. One of the characters here at the front, he's obviously the leader, and back to the left as we look, that's his 2IC. He's got his red capped bodyguards with him, heavy machine gun, and these chaps here on the left are LMGs of some description. The bulk of the chaps in the middle have got AK-47s. Obviously I've done a mismatch of clothing as well. And then over on the right, behind the other HMG, is an RPG gang. Mortars to the rear, and of course you've got to have the obligatory technicals. The vehicles I got off eBay, Team Yankee, and I think they look pretty good. The chaps on the back are all Peter Pig. They do a good selection of these guys go on the back of vehicles. And in the background, my shantytown stuff from Ironclad Miniatures, which I picked up at Attack the other week. And now here's my militia figures, or some sort of ragtag religious movement. At the moment I've just got one leader, some sort of weirdo cultist there with a couple of bodyguards. And to the right I've got the more of the sort of savage machete wielding type people. Perhaps use the Skull Club people at the front for junior leaders. I've got some naked AK-47 chaps here, but most of these ones on the right will be a bit of a sort of mob formation. I need to look at some different types of rules for that, potentially. And on the left, all these chaps have the standard AK-47 and various flip-flops, welly boots and the like. Got some ammunition carriers to the rear, and again some more shantytown stuff. The two vehicles there, the one on the right, that's from Peter Pig, their standard Toyota pickup for a technical, and the other one's just a dinky toy type thing picked up from a local market stall. So let's have a closer look at some of my shantytown stuff. The vast majority of this is from Ironclad Miniatures. I've made a few signs out of coffee sticks and the like, some bases, just to give it a bit more flavour, and of course you can mix and match those. At the far end I've got some Vietnamese terrain from Timecast. They're very nice resin models, and I'll be using that for the better parts of more salubrious towns. And the sign on there, Best Hotel, is just blue tacked on, so I can obviously replace that with something more befitting each scenario if needed. So there we go, modern Africa. Looks a lot of fun, doesn't it? The AK-47 has a vast array of different types of groupings you can have, factions, if we can use that word. I know some people don't like it. And also the wars of insurgency. And like I said, some really good, interesting ways to bring in some sort of tribal / national characteristics for the various groupings and organisations. So that'll be a lot of fun. I will intend to do some sort of big open-ended campaign. Will it ever end? I don't know. These sort of things go on for years anyway, don't they? I'd like to do a full backstory with it, map, you know, the government forces, the militia, the rebels, or whatever they may be. And that could be a lot of fun. So there we go. Anyway, that is probably enough rambling for today. I've covered Chain of Command 2 for the Eastern Front, and I've done a Chain of Command 2. Look forward to Africa and see where we go with that. Hopefully you'll see some of these before too long. But in the meantime, it is the holidays. I hope you have a great time, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Choose 10 FPS, clear.